Okay, Assalamualaikum class. So today we'll be moving on into our next chapter, and this is chapter 5, which will be on functions. Okay, so we have covered the different types of control structures, including sequential control structure, you have selection control structure, and then you have repetition control structure. So today we'll be going into a function. Okay, so what exactly is a function? Okay, as a definition, function is a group of statements that will perform a particular task, meaning that a function is where we create a programmer will actually create and specify what the function will do. Okay, so whenever we create a function, it is intended to do something. Okay, so inside your function you will have a group of statements, meaning that inside your function you will have C++ coding inside there. So each line of codes inside your function will do certain things that you want it to do. Okay, for example, you can create a function to calculate the area of a rectangle. Okay, you can even create a function to display the total price of items purchased. Okay, so you can use function to basically do anything that you want whenever you call it. All right, so why do we need functions? Okay, when you are solving a complex problem, your main program can become long and complicated. All right, so let's say you write a program. Okay, so your program can get very lengthy and very long. Okay, so in order for you to simplify your program, you can actually use functions to do that. Okay, we can take certain parts of the program and put it inside a function, so whenever we need that function to do that, then we can just call the function. Okay, so function can be used to simplify your main program. So what is your main program? It is the int main. Okay, whenever we write a program, we have our main program, right? Your main function. Okay, so whatever that you want to write inside that, okay, that is what will be executed. So that is known as your main function. Okay, so we can simplify our main function by creating other functions, so that whenever we need that function to do something, we can just call it. All right, so how can you simplify your main program? By breaking it up. So you take your long function, your main function, you break it up. You take certain parts and then you put it inside a new function that you want to create. Okay, so whenever you need that, you can just call it using a function called statement. Okay, so a function is also known as a subprogram. So if I show you this, okay, this program right here is a simple program that will actually okay, the question says, what are the objectives of this program? So if you take a look at this, we know that this program will ask the user for their name. Why? Because it wants to display the greeting message. Okay, so that is one objective of the program. Okay, so another objective that the program will do is it will calculate the wage. So it will display the greeting message, okay, by taking in the name, and it will also calculate the wage, okay, by taking in the number of hours and the hourly pay rate, and then you calculate it and you can display the wage. So this is what this program will do. Okay, so we can actually simplify this program by using functions. Okay, so I'll show you this. Alright, so if you take a look here, everything is done by the main program. So when you click on execute, every single thing that is inside your main function will be executed in sequence. Okay, but we can actually simplify this and break it up and put it inside different functions if we want. Okay, so that will simplify the main program. So if you take a look here, okay, the main function has definitely became shorter. Alright, so what I did was I took the certain part of the program. In this case, I took the line of input, okay, enter your name, get line, okay, and display the message. So I put it inside a different function. So meaning that in order to simplify that main program, I took whatever that I want inside a different functions. Okay, so whenever I want to display greeting, I can just call this function. So when I call this function, okay, it will get to this and it will execute it. Okay, and then Okay, for the next function, okay, I also put the calculation inside this function. Okay, so meaning that this function, this first function, is used to display greeting by taking in the name and see out or displaying the welcome. Okay, and then you have also another function which is called calculate wages. So this function will actually receive the hours and rate and calculate the wage for you. Okay, so meaning that this main program will not do everything. All right, so whenever it needs to display the greeting, it will call the function display greeting. Whenever it needs to calculate the wages, it will call the function called calculate wages. So that's what we can do with functions. We can take or simplify our main program, break it up and put it in different functions so that we can simplify the main program. So whenever we need that thing, okay, to be executed, we can just call the function that we create. Okay, so that is the purpose of having functions. Okay, so since each function will do a specific task, therefore it is easier for you to trace errors and debug. Okay, so meaning that since we have put our coding in different functions, so whenever, let's say, we have an error in the display greetings, okay, we know that the error comes from that function, so we don't need to check the other areas. So that's why it is easier for us to trace the errors and debug whenever we use functions. So whenever there's error in that particular function, we can just look at that. All right. A function can also be called numerous times anytime you need it. Therefore, it can prevent redundancy and saves time. Meaning that, let's say we want to display the greeting message 5 times. Okay, we don't need to copy and paste the same code again and again. All right. Instead, we can just call it whenever we need it. So this actually saves us time and it prevents redundancy. So it means that the function, whenever you need it, you can just call it. Okay, let's say at the top you need that particular function, you can just call that. And then along the bottom, maybe you need that function again, you can just call that instead of creating a new function and copy and pasting the same thing. Okay, so we can call functions a lot of times depending on how many times you need it. Okay, so when it comes to functions, we have 2 categories. We have predefined functions and user-defined function. Okay, predefined function are built-in functions, meaning that they are functions that already existed. Okay, where are they? They are located inside the libraries. For example, you have things like POW. Okay, POW is used to calculate the power of something. You have SQRT, which is square root, so that is used to calculate the square root of something. So these are actually predefined functions, meaning that these functions have already been created by other programmers. So whenever we need it, we can just call it. Okay, so instead of, let's say, we want to calculate x to the power of 10, instead of we write x times x times x times x times x 10 times, we can just call POW. Okay, so POW bracket x comma 10, so we can just use that to calculate our power of x to 10. Okay, so it is easier by just calling the function. So again, predefined functions are functions that already existed. Okay, so we can just call it whenever we need it. All right. So whenever we need to use a built-in function or predefined functions, of course we need to have a preprocessor directives, meaning that, let's say we want to use POW. At the top, we need to have hash include cmath. Okay, but if you want to use things like set precision, then at the top we can put hash include iomanib. Okay, depending on what functions you want to do or you want to use, you need to know where it is located. So you need to know what is the header file and just include that header file inside your preprocessor directives. Okay. So if you take a look here, write a program that will receive a number, and by using that number, calculate number to the power of 3. So this is what I said earlier. All right. So instead of you writing it manually by doing number times number times number, which is number to the power of 3, okay, you can just use a predefined function called POW. All right. So you write POW number comma 3. So what it will do, it will call that function called POW, and it will help calculate that for you. Okay, so again, function, we can just call it, because since POW is a function, we can just call that function because the function POW can calculate the power of something. Okay, so if you want to use POW, of course you need to have the preprocessor directives, which is the header file of cmath. Okay, So that is predefined function. All right. So whenever you want to use a predefined function, you can take a look at this table here. All right. If you want to use getLine or ignore, okay, this function. So all of these are functions. Okay, so if you want to use any of these functions, you must include its header file at the top. Okay, so for example, maybe you want to use set precision. Okay, then you put iomanip. Okay, if you want to put in string compare or you want to do string copy, you use cstring. Okay, if you want to do to lower, then you use cc type. So depending on what you want the program to do, you can just call the function and include the header file, then you can just use the function that you want. Okay. Okay, so now let's take a look at this quick exercise here. All right, it says that write a program that will take a person's gender, all right, and display if they are a male or a female. So if you want to know whether that person is a female or a male, it will depend on the gender that they entered. If they enters F, then it's a female. If they enters M, it's a male. But we need to cater for both capital letters and small letters in this case. All right. And also, if the user enters other letters other than F or M, an error will be displayed if the wrong gender is entered. All right, so for this question, let's take a look here how we can solve it. So the first thing that we need is we need to ask for the user's gender. So cout, enter your gender. Okay, and then cin gender. Okay, so as we all know, this gender, we want to receive one letter. All right, so it will be char gender. All right, so here the user can enter F, they can enter a small f, they can enter M, they can also enter a small m, they can enter Z, okay, they can enter a small k. All right, so based on what the users enters here, okay, we need to decide what will be displayed by the program based on what the user enters. All right, so if, okay, we know that if we want to display it's a female, the gender should be F. All right, so we write here gender equals to F. All right, and then what happens if the user enters F? All right, we want to display you are a female. Okay, so you want to display you are a female. All right, so again, if you want to check if the user is a male, so else if gender equals to M. All right, and then what will be entered here? Okay, cout, you are a male. Okay, so this is for F and M. All right, but if the users enters the wrong letter, I mean if they enter Z or they enter K, all right, we're gonna do we're gonna do else, all right, and then it will display wrong gender. So here it will be wrong gender. Okay, so there's that. Now, if you take a look at my condition right here, all right, you are a female will only be displayed if the users enters a capital F. But what if the users enters a small f? All right, again, the same thing goes for male. So if the users enters a capital M, then it will display this. But if the users enters a small m, all right, then it will not go inside here. So we need to cater for a small letter and a capital letter as well. All right, there are two ways for you to do this. The manual way is for you to do R. Okay, you write here R gender equals to a small f. Now, this way is possible for you to do, but there's an easier way for you to do that instead of you writing the same thing over and over again. Okay, so instead we can use a predefined function that allows us to convert the letter that the user enters to any cases that you want. Okay, let's say right now I am checking for a capital letter. So I know that here, what the user enters should be a capital letter. All right. But if the user enters a small letter, okay, what it will do, it will convert that small letter to a capital letter. All right. So there's a predefined function for that, and this is called a toUpper. Okay. So what do you want to convert here? I want to convert gender. So whatever the user enters, let's say the user enters a small f. Okay. So f here will be converted to a capital F. All right. So it will convert this, and of course, since we do a process, we need to know where to store it. So let's store it back to our gender. All right. So let's say here is a small f. It will convert to an uppercase. Then right now, suddenly this gender will be in uppercase. Okay. The same thing goes if it's in capital letter. If it's already in capital letters, okay, again, since it's already in uppercase, it will just be sent back as an uppercase. Okay. If the m is in lowercase, again, this will be in lowercase m. Then it will store the uppercase version, and you can be, so basically this condition will be true in the end. All right. So this is how you can solve this problem, for you to change on how you can basically convert from one capital letter from one cases to another case. All right. So since you're using a predefined function, again, all predefined function will be located inside a header file. So since toUpper is located inside the header file called CSC type, up here you need to write include CSC type. All right. So once you've written that, then the compiler will be able to detect this predefined function called toUpper. Okay, so let's take a look at the next type of function, which is a user-defined functions. So like I've mentioned earlier, we have the first one was predefined functions. Predefined functions are functions that's already been built, okay? But if you want to create your own functions, then this is called a user-defined functions, meaning that it is defined by the programmer. So we create our own function, we decide what we want to put inside the function, okay? So this is known as user-defined functions, okay? So you can call your function and just write it or define your function inside your the same file as your main program, or you can include it in a separate file if you want, okay? But for me, okay, since you want to see everything clearly, you can just put it inside the main program, okay? So with user-defined functions, there are three types, which are function with a return value, function without a return value, and function with pass-by reference. So depending on what you want the function to do, you can use any of these three functions. So we'll go into details of each one. Okay, the first one is function with a return value. So what this function do is that this is the type of function that will actually return one value after all the statements inside it have been executed. Meaning that whenever we use this type of function, okay, inside our function, at the end, we must include a return value. This is why we call it function with a return value. So whatever you want to do inside there, okay, let's say you want to do some calculations, you calculate things or whatever, but in the end, you will have a statement called a return statement, which you will place at the end of that function. So this function, whenever it is called, it will be executed and it will return the value back to the person or anything that calls it. All right. So that is known as a function with a return value. So whenever we have a function, we must have these three things. Like repetition, we also have three things that we need to have, right? Initialize, evaluate, and update. Okay, but with functions, you also need these three things, which are function prototype, or also known as function declaration, function call, and also function definition. Okay, so I will go into detail what exactly are these three things. Okay, so function prototype is actually your function declaration. So whenever you want to use a function, we need to declare it. Just like a variable, whenever we want to use a variable, we declare that variable, right? So again, the same concept. If you want to use a function, we need to declare that function. Okay, so that the compiler will know that the function exists. Okay, so that is function declaration or function prototype. Okay, the next thing we have is function call. All right, so function call is a statement where you use whenever you need to execute that function. Okay, let's say you have created a function, okay, and you want to use that function, you can just call it. Okay, that is known as a function call. All right, so whoever calls that function, so that function will execute itself for that person that calls it. Okay, so then last one is we have function definition. So function definition is actually where you define what you want the function to do. So function definition is where you have the name of the function and then inside there what you want the function to do. So you write the coding inside there. Okay, so whenever this function is called, the compiler will execute the function definition. Okay, so since we're talking about function with a return value, inside your function definition, you must have a return value. Okay, so whenever the function is executed, in the end, it will return the value back to the person that calls it. Okay.
Alright, so to give you kind of a general idea how function with a return value works and how you can use function declaration, how function call is used, how function definition is used, alright, I'll give you a very simple situation so that you can understand this a little bit better, alright. So let's say, in your house, okay, so let's say you have a family, okay, in your house you have yourself, okay, so let's say this is you. Okay, and then you have a brother and you have a sister. Okay, and then one day your mom is going to the store. So since you're the eldest one, okay, so she asks you to prepare breakfast. So by the time she gets back, she wants you to get the breakfast ready on the table. Okay, so now as the person in charge, all right, it will be best for you to delegate tasks to your brother and sister as well, instead of you doing all the work yourself. Okay, why would you do all the work yourself if you have your brother and sister there to help you? All right, so you think and think, okay, now what do I do? All right, what do I prepare on the table, okay, as breakfast? So you kind of think, oh yeah, my brother here knows how to make a toast. Okay, so you know that this brother here, so let's call this to person right here. Maybe I call this as Bob and I call this as Kate. Okay, so we have Bob, we have Kate. All right, so this is you. Okay, now I want you to imagine that these three people here are like functions. Okay, now so you are actually is the main program, is the main function. Okay, so this is a function called Bob and this is a function called Kate. All right, now with Bob, okay, Bob knows how to make toast. Okay, so that's why you instruct Bob to make the toast for you. All right, so that's this function called Bob. All right, so inside here, okay, as you know, when you have coding, you must have a curly braces. So inside here are Bob's recipes on how he can create the toast. Okay, so in the end, Bob, whenever Bob is called, all right, Bob will do the toast for you. Okay, because towards the end, Bob will return the toast. Okay, so close off. So you know that what is happening here, okay, whenever Bob is making the toast, okay, in the end Bob will actually return something back to the person that calls it. Okay, so let's say right now, okay, on the table, let's say you have a table here, okay, you have a table and you want to put a plate of toast here. Okay, a plate of toast. So where does this plate of toast comes from? It comes from this. Okay, so now as the main program, okay, as the main program, you have things that you can do as well. So since you know that, okay, this is easy for me, I don't have to make my own toast because Bob knows how to make it. So all I need to do is just call Bob. All right, so this is a function call. All right, function call allows you to call the function when you want the thing that you want. All right, so in this case, I want the toast. All right, so right now on my hand, okay, I have an empty plate. Okay, on this empty plate, I want to fill it up with the toast. All right, so let's kind of erase this first. Erase this. Okay, so before I can I can serve this on the table, okay, before I can serve this on the table, okay, I must have the toast. So in order for me to get the toast, I must ask Bob. So I'll call Bob. So all I can do is just, you write inside your function here, you call Bob. Bob, so this is a function call, right? Now, whenever you have a function, there is this thing called a parameter. A parameter, all right? Parameter are the things, or are the variables, or are the data, or are the values, okay? What are the values that Bob needs? So in this case, in order for Bob to create or to cook his toast, what are the things that he needs? In this case, maybe he needs a bread, okay? And maybe he needs a jam, all right? So in order for Bob to do his toast, he needs bread and he needs jam. So since you want the toast that is made by Bob, you must give the things that Bob needs. Okay, you must give the bread and the jam to Bob. Okay, so you can give bread and you can give jam to Bob. Okay, so what you're doing is whenever you call Bob, Bob, and then you will give the bread to this and then the jam to this. So Bob will receive the bread and the jam. Now, in here, I call it bread and jam. You don't have for the main program, because these two are the two different persons, right? Two different functions, all right? How you name things is up to the function itself, okay? So let's say I don't call it bread, okay? I call it roti, okay? So instead of I call it bread, I call it roti, okay? And I call this J, all right? So again, when you have roti, okay, since it's in the same position, Bob will always know that what he is receiving will be the bread, and what he is receiving here will be the jam. So no matter what you name here, it will always know that the value it received will be stored in bread and it will be stored in jam. Okay, so whenever you call it, you must make sure that the parameter fits exactly as the user specified, the function specified. All right, so Bob has received bread, Bob has received jam, so he will do these things, he will do whatever that he needs to do, and then in the end, he will have the toast. So since it's a function with a return value, it will return the toast back to you here. Okay, so right now you have an empty plate, so you need to receive that, all right? So since there's a value to be received, you must store this value. So let's say I call it toast. Okay, you can name this other thing if you want. Let's say I don't want to call it toast, I want to call it tea. This is also possible. So meaning that on this plate here, you have tea, okay, which is your toast. All right, so once you have your toast, since you have started, okay, it is now on the plate, then you can serve it here. So meaning serve, maybe you can see out tea, for example. Okay, so whoever calls Bob will get the toast. So if let's say Kate wants a piece of toast, Kate can also call Bob. Okay, so if Kate wants Bob to make the toast, she also needs to give him the bread and the jam. Okay, now this means that function can be called anytime and by anybody. All right, so whoever calls Bob will get the toast. But in order to create the toast, you must give bread and jam to Bob. Okay, now the next thing that I want on the table is I want to have maybe a glass of tea. All right, a cup of tea. All right, so Kate can do that. All right, so you know that this is Kate, this is Bob, so you will have Kate here. Okay, so Kate, all right, can do a cup of tea. So now I said that these are called parameters, right? The bread and the jam is a parameter, okay? The roti and J is also the parameter, okay? But the parameter here is optional, okay? Let's say Kate doesn't need anything. Why? Because maybe at the kitchen, she already have tea bags there, all right? So there's no need for the people who calls it to get it for her because she's already got the item itself or the value itself, all right? So whoever calls Kate, so let's say I want a cup of tea now on the table, all right? On my hand, I have a cup, but it's empty, okay? In order for me to fill it up, I need to call Kate. So you, whenever you write Kate, all right, since Kate doesn't need anything, you don't have to give anything to her, all right? So when you call Kate, you said, Kate, can you make a cup of tea for me? She said, yeah, sure. And she did that. And then suddenly, since this is a function with a return value, she will return the tea back to you. So this is a return value. So it will return the tea back here. Since you want to receive, all right, so you must have an equal sign here. So let's say I name it te, all right? So I name it te, all right? So once you start it, now inside here is your te, then you can see out te, all right? So this is the te that was on your hand that has been filled, that you received from Kate, all right? So this is how function works, all right? Again, whenever you need something, whenever you need the function to do something, you just call it, all right? So this is known as a function call, all right? Now, we have function definition, right? These are function definition. It says here function definition is where you will define what your function will do, all right? So this is your function definition. This is also function definition because you are identifying what Bob will do, because in the end Bob will return, okay, you will have a return value back to the person that calls it, all right? So this is a function definition, this is a function call, all right? So that is the basic general idea how you can use functions inside your program. Okay, so for function declaration, on the other hand, is when you write your program itself, okay, you need to declare Bob and you also need to declare Kate. I will show you that after this, okay? Okay, so now let's use back our previous example where you have your main, you have Bob, and you have Kate, right? Okay, so the first person that is in charge, of course, that's you. So you are the main function, so that would be the int main. Okay, so inside here is what you want to do. Okay, so since you want to place some toast on the table, all right, so where can you get that toast? I can get that toast from Bob. So in order for me to get that toast, okay, so let's say I write here toast equals to, so where can I get my toast? I can get my toast from Bob. Now, since I don't know what Bob needs, I need to take a look at the function definition. Okay, so let's say at the bottom here, if you take a look here, function definition will define what your function will do, and it must be placed outside of the main program. So let's say this is the main program and you close this up, right? Okay, so before at the end of this, you will have return 0. Okay, now this is one function, which is the main function. Bob is another function, so you cannot put that function inside this main function. It must be outside, okay? So let's say I put it down here, okay? So I put down here and I call this thing Bob, all right? Since my function name is Bob, all right? So what does Bob needs? Maybe Bob needs toast, and it also need jam, okay? So these are the parameters that Bob need. Not toast, what did I say? Bread, right? Not toast, all right? Bread, okay? So Bob needs bread and also jam. So since you know that, okay, inside Bob's function definition, okay, Bob needs bread and it needs jam. So you must give the bread and the jam to Bob, okay? So once Bob has received the bread and it has received the jam, you can do it you can name this thing as the same name if you want, but you can name this as different names if you want as well. So it's up to you, right? So since Bob has received bread and jam, it will do whatever it needs to do. So you write whatever that you want to do, and then in the end it will return the toast back to you. So let's say Bob just call it tea. All right, so it will return this tea, right, back to the person that calls it. So who calls this? The main function called it. So it will return this back to here. So meaning that this whole thing now becomes the tea. All right, so since this is an equal sign, it will be stored inside toast. So now your variable toast will have the tea. Okay, so since you want to put it on your table, so all you need to do is just see out toast. Okay, so you know that in order, whenever the function gives you a value, you must store it. So this thing is very important. You must store the value so that you can display it whenever you need it. All right, so basically that's how function call and function definition work. So this is a function definition. Basically, it will define what the function will do. Okay, since this is a function with a return value, it will return back to the person that calls it. All right. Now, function prototype is the declaration of your function. Since I have a function called Bob and I place it outside of the main function, at the top here, I must declare it. All right, because whenever you execute a program, it will read from top to bottom. Okay, so if it reads the main program first and suddenly you see Bob, it doesn't understand where Bob is because Bob still hasn't been executed, hasn't been read since it is located at the bottom. Right? So if you write your function, okay, if you write your function at the bottom after the main program, you must declare it at the top. Okay, so you must declare Bob at the top here. Bob received bread and it receives jam. So you must declare Bob with the data type. All right. So since this is just an example so that you can understand this easily, it won't have a data type here, right? But this is called a function definition, just to give you a a rough idea how it works. Okay, but there is another way for you to do this. If you don't want to write function prototype, okay, you don't have to, but instead you need to write this function at the top. Okay, now again I repeat, there's two ways for you to write your function definition, either after the main program or before the main program. If you write it after the main program, you must have a function prototype. But if you don't want to have the prototype, you must write your function definition at the top. Okay, so those are how you can use function prototype, function call, and function definition, just to give you a general idea how this works. Okay, so let's go into an example so that you can understand this a bit further. All right. Okay, so let's take a look at the question right here. It says write a program that will add up two numbers received from the user. Now let's try to write a program, a very simple one at that, okay, without the use of function. Okay, normally if we don't use function, okay, for us to add up two numbers received from the user, okay, we would do cout and the first number, okay, and then we would cin num1, and then we get another number, cout, enter second number. All right, and then we do cin num2. Okay, so since we have received the two input, all we need to do is just total equals to num1 plus num2. All right, and then we would cout total is total. Okay, now this is a very simple program where it doesn't use any function. Okay, so let's try and change this program so that we can use function. All right, so instead of the main program executing everything by himself, we can use a function to help the main program. Okay, so the question says write the same program but use function calculate total that will receive two numbers through its parameters. Okay, now what is the name of the function? Again, the name of the function is called calculate total. So where do we write our function? We need to write it outside of the main program, either before main or after main. All right, so if we write it after main, okay, so let us try and write it here. Okay, so what is the name of the function? The name of the function is called calculate total. All right, so inside here would be our parameters. So never forget parameters. Okay, so what do we write here? Okay, it says that function calculator will receive two numbers through its parameters, meaning that in order for this function to do its job, okay, it needs to have two parameters, which are the two numbers. So as we all know, number, okay, num1 and also num2. Okay, you can use the same name or a different name, it's up to you. Okay, so let's say I name this as n1 and n2. Okay, because this num1 and this num2 is not related to this n1 and n2. All right, because this is two different functions. All right, don't take a look at this yet. All right, so whenever we do function, all right, we do not want to rely on the main program first. Okay, so let us try and delete this first, okay, and do our function so that we can see the process behind this a bit better. All right, so again, the question said function calculate total will receive two numbers for its parameters. Okay, so it will receive number 1 and also number 2. So this number we must declare it. Okay, so parameter must be declared. So since number we know it will be an integer, so you write int there. Again, this will be an int as well. Okay, so after that is you open up your curly braces. So what do you want to put inside here? Okay, it says that this function will calculate the total of two numbers and return the total back to the user. So you know that what is the job of this function? This job of this function will calculate the total for you. Okay, based on the number, these two numbers that it receives. Okay, you must remember that the parameter here, parameter is the value received. Okay, is the value received by whoever that calls it. Okay, so if somebody gives this function the value here and the value here, you can help them to calculate the total for them. All right, so total equals to n1 plus n2. All right, so do you display it? No, instead you return the value back to the person. All right, since you have calculated total, you do return total. Okay, so now since we have declared n1 and n2 here, okay, we don't need to declare it inside here, but we still have a variable called total, so we need to declare total here. All right, now since this function is a function with a return value, you know that it wants to return total, right? Now take a look at what total is declared as. Total is declared as integer. Okay, so you must write here, so you must write before the function name, you must write int. Okay, because this data type here will indicate that this function is a function with a return value, which will return an integer value to the person that calls it. Okay, so this is important, this data type here, and you must declare the parameters that you need. All right, so since you have this function that can help calculate the total, so what main can do, okay, int main. All right, so instead of the main program, okay, calculating everything by himself, all right, you can just call the function calculate total because this person can do that for you. Now, does this person get an input from the user? No, that's why it needs parameters. Okay, so meaning that since it doesn't have the input, you must give it to them. So you are the person that will be asking the user to enter the number. Okay, enter number 1, okay, and then cin num1, all right, cout, enter number 2, okay, and then cn num2. All right, so previously, okay, if the main is doing it by himself, all right, it will calculate the total inside here. But instead, since we know that there is another function that can do that, we can just call it. So we call this function, which has a name, calculate total. All right, so what does this function needs? It needs two numbers, this and this. Okay, so you know that n1, okay, you want to give num1 to n1. So num1 relates to n1, so you write here num1 and you also write num2, because this function needs two numbers to help calculate it for you. So you're going to give num1. Okay, let's say the user here enters 2. Okay, and then here the user enters 4. Okay, so num1 would be 2. Okay, and also num2 would be 4. So here, okay, here n1 would be 2 and then n2 would be 4, because this one relates to this. All right, this one relates to this. All right, so since it has received 2 and 4, okay, it will calculate it. So n1 is 2, n1 is 2, yeah, and 2 is 4. So 2 plus 4, which would be 6. All right, 6. So it will return 6 back to the person. So return total, so this will receive 6. Now, in order for it to receive, it needs to start. Okay, so we can just, maybe I write here sum, or you can even write the same name if you want, total equals to calculate total. All right, so let's say I give it the same name. All right, so this total here will receive 6. Oops, cannot do that. All right, so this total will receive 6. Okay, now when I output this, so cout total is, okay, you write here total. So this total actually refers to this total, okay, not this one. This one is inside here. It's a different function, so do not look at that. That's why I said that the name can change. So if you write here sum, all right, so since sum will start 6, so you can display sum here. So it's up to you. All right, so since these are the variables that you declare inside this function, you must declare all of them. All right, so int, so num1, num2. Okay, since you're using sum, so you write here sum as well. Okay, so these are basically, this is known as function definition, because you are defining what this function will do. Okay, so inside your main program, since you know that this function can help calculate the total for you, so this is known as a function call, because you are calling this function. Okay, so another thing we need is a function prototype. Okay, since this function is located after the main program, so before your main program, at the top here, you must declare your function. So how to declare it? All you need to do is just copy and paste this thing. Okay, put it on top here. So you don't need n1 here, you don't need n2 here, and then just semicolon, because you're providing all the data type, because when we declare, we are providing the data type, right? Okay, so this is known as function prototype or function declaration. Okay, so this is how you solve this problem. Now again, I've said earlier that if you don't want to write function prototype, you can, but you must make sure that you write your function definition, you put it before your main program. So if you do it like this, you don't need a function prototype. Okay, so this is how you solve this problem using functions. Okay, so for this question, it says, what would be the output displayed on the screen for the program below? Now, if you find this the question with functions, all right, in them, all right, you must make sure that whenever a program is run, okay, please remember this, when a program is run, it will only take a look at the int main first. Okay, do not take a look at the other functions yet. Okay, because this function will only be executed if it's called. All right, same as people, all right, if they are not called, they won't do the job. Okay, unless you call them, then it will do the job. All right, because the person that is in charge here is a main program. So whenever you click on execute, it will read the main program first. All right, then after that, if this function is called, then it will do the job. All right, so let's take a look at this function here. So it says here int 1 equals to 4. So let us trace. Okay, please remember that. Okay, the main function and the other function have different variables. Okay, they are not related. All right, so inside your main you have variable called 1. So inside here it stores 4, and then you have 2, and then it stores 5, and then you have 3. Okay, then there's that. All right, so 3 equals to fnz12. So you know that right now we have a function call. So then we will only take a look here. Okay, so 1 relates to value 1. Okay, 2 relates to value 2. So we have a function called fnz. Okay, so this function has parameter called value 1 and also value 2. Okay, so inside value 1 it will receive 1, which is inside 1 there is 4. Okay, inside value 2 it received the value inside 2, which is 5. Okay, so int ab, so we know there is another variable called a and b. So a equals to value 1 times 2. Value 1 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, so this is stored in a. And then b equals to value 2, which is 5, plus 3, which is 8. All right, so right here, so return b, so it will return b. So 8 will be returned back to the main program. So where is it returned to? It returns back to this. Okay, so it receives 8 here, so 3 equals to 8, so here we'll start 8. All right, so then it goes here, which is your output. Okay, output C out, which is 3, 3 is 8. Okay, space you have 1, 1 which is 4. Okay, and then 2, 2 is 5. Okay, and then you have another space, and then you have fnz21. Now you will notice that there is another function call. All right, so again we will go back to this function. All right, as we all know, once it reaches return, it means that its job is done, so it will remove everything here. Okay, so that whenever the function is called again, it will do the same job again. All right, so fnz21, 2 refers to value 1, and then 1 refers to value 2. Okay, so 2 is 5, 5 will be stored inside value 1, and then you have 1, which is 4, it will be stored inside value 2. So it's 4 here. Okay, so in AB, A equals to value 1 times 2, A equals to value 1, which is 5 times 2, so this is 10. All right, so B equals to value 2 plus 3. Value 2 is 4 plus 3, which is 7. All right, so return B, it will return B here. Okay, now where will it return to? It will return to here as 7. Okay, since this is not a variable, it is a place on C out, so meaning that it wants to display this value here, so it will display 7. And then return 0, so the output that will be displayed on the screen will be 8, 4, 5, and 7. Right?
Alright, so let's try and do this last question here. Alright, you are asked to write a program that will calculate the area of a rectangle and a square. Your program should contain the following functions and main program. Now, whenever you come across a function, please do the function definition first, so that you know what kind of function is available for you to use. Alright, so the function here, other than the main program, okay, we have a function called calc area. Okay, so our function is called calc area. Okay, so what are some parameters that we need? It says here, function calculate area will accept the width and height of any rectangle or square through its parameters. So meaning that it will accept width, and then it will also accept height. Okay, so width we declare it as integer. Okay, and height will also declare it as integer. Okay, so open up your curly braces. Okay, and then close it back. All right, so what should we write here? All right, so inside here are the jobs that that this function will do. Okay, it says that this function will calculate and return the area based on the width and the height that it receives. Okay, so how do we calculate an area? Okay, since we receive width and receive height, of course, to calculate area of a rectangle or a square, all we need to do is just write area equals to width times height. Alright, so in the end, we just want to return the area that we calculated. Alright, so since we haven't declared area, we declare it as integer. Okay, in area equals to width times height, return area. So since this is a function with a return value, we must put a data type here. Okay, so since we declare area as integer, we write here int. Okay, so this function, we know that will calculate area. Okay, we'll calculate area based on the width and the height that it receives. Okay, so if you take a look at how we calculate a rectangle, okay, so the first thing what this program will do, okay, it will calculate the rectangle, the area of a rectangle. So before we can calculate the area of a rectangle, okay, we must prompt the user to input the width and height of a rectangle. So first of all, let's ask the user, okay, the main program will ask the user to enter the width and height of the rectangle. So enter the width of the rectangle. Okay, and then it will receive the width, let's say width R. Okay, width R, so Cn width R. Okay, so we want to do the same thing and receives the height. Enter the height of a rectangle. Okay, so we can do height R. Okay, so let's declare this int width R and also height R. Okay, now whenever we want to calculate the area of a rectangle, we know that it is width times height, right? Okay, so the width is because rectangle has two sides of width and two height of and two sides of height. Okay, so instead of the main program calculating it, okay, this what's it called, this function will help calculate the area for you. Okay, so all we need to do is just to calculate the area R. Okay, we just call this function calculate area. Okay, and it will give the width R and also the height R to this function. Okay, for example, it gives let's say 10 and the height may be 2. Okay, so width R is 10 and then height R is 2. Okay, so in here the parameter would be width, it will receive what is given by width R. Can you see that? Alright, so it will receive 10 and then height, it will receive from height R and receive 2. Okay, so area equals to width times height, so 10 times 2 would be 20. Alright, so return area, meaning that, okay, it will return 20 to this area R. So right now this has becomes 20. Do you get me? Okay, so the next one we want to do is we want to calculate the area of a square. Okay, again, we need to ask for the user, we have to ask from the user the width and height of the square. Okay, so let's edit this. Enter the width of a square, enter the height of the square. Okay, again, let's say width S and also height S. Okay, let's copy and paste this so it's easier. Width S, height S. Okay, so again, instead of this main program calculating the area for the program, okay, so width S and height S, okay, if you want to calculate the area of a square, the formula to calculate the area of a square and the formula to calculate the area of a rectangle is exactly the same, except for that With rectangle, the sides, it has two exact sides of each one, okay? Whereas square has all the same sides. But the formula to calculate the area is the same. So you don't need to create a new function to calculate that for you, because in the end it uses the same formula, which is width times height, right? So this means that if the formula is the same, you can always just use the same function, because the value from the parameters it receives will be different. Okay, for example, let's say I call this area S equals to, all right, what I want to give the width of S, and then okay, sorry, we're gonna call that first calc area. Okay, you want to give the width S and also the height S to this function. All right, so now let's remove that. Okay, so let's say the width S here, it receives maybe 20. Okay, the height here, it receives 5. Okay, so area S equals to calculate area, so we're calling this function. All right, so we want to give it width S, which is 20, and also width height S, which is 5. Okay, so this function will receive the value. Okay, so width S refers to the width, which is 20. Okay, and then height S refers to the height, which is 5. All right. Okay, so since it receives a 20 and 5, so we can just calculate area equals to width times height. So 20 times 5 is 100. Okay, you will notice that the formula is the same. All we need to do is just give this the value that we need to give. So the value here changes. All right. So if the calculation of the whatever it is that you want to do has the same formula, you don't need to create a new function. You can just reuse the same function because it does the same thing. All right. So it will return the area back here. So this will receive 100. Okay, so in the end what you want to do is you just want to display these. So see out the area of the rectangle is, okay, so we get that from area R. Okay, so the same thing, except for this time it's for area S of the square is square area S. Okay, so again we need to declare area R and also area S. Okay, now keep in mind when you're declaring the area R and area S, why did I do integer? Because this value that it gives is declared as integer, so it means that the 100 that we receive here will be integer. Okay, and the 20 that receive here will be integer, because this depends on the function what it gives back to the person that calls it. Okay. Okay, so lastly, once we have done our main program, we have a function here. Okay, do not forget to declare our function. Right, since we have placed our function here, function definition after the main program, we must have a function prototype. So at the top here, we will write int calculate area. Okay, and then we have the data type integer and close it off with a semicolon. Alright, so this is the function prototype. But again, if you don't want to write a function prototype, you can always write your function here before your main program. So there are two ways for you to do this. Okay, so that is how you can actually solve any problem whenever you're using function with a return value. Okay.